Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today I'm sharing with you my first impressions on the Monochrome Manga Club selections for the month of May. So the Monochrome Manga Club is an in-real-life manga club that I host, and we read 2 first-in-a-series selections. We're also currently doing 2 full series reads. So our selections for the month of May were Volume 1 of Ayashimon. This is by Yuji Kaku, published by Viz, rated older teen. We also read Volume 1 of Heaven's Design Team. This is by Hebizo and Tsuta Suzuki, with art by Tarako. This one is published by Kodansha, rated teen. As for our series reads, we are currently reading through Land of the Lustrous by Haruko Ichikawa. This one is published by Kodansha, rated teen. And we are also reading through Dr. Stone. These are by Riichiro Inagaki, published by Viz, rated teen. As we are not at the beginning of Dr. Stone or Land of the Lustrous, I will not be sharing my thoughts with you on the volumes that we read. However, if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on those volumes, you can check out my Desis 19 diaries. So let's get into our first in a series selections so that I can tell you what I thought of them. I'm going to start with Ayashimon. So this one is about a guy who really enjoys reading manga, and he kind of aspires to be someone really strong. There are actually quite a few name drops of other really strong manga characters in here, so you can kind of get an idea of the type of strength he aspires to having. And so he really trains up and becomes really strong to the point where he can't have a satisfying fight anymore because he just takes out his opponent too easily. And so one day he's trying to find someone to battle, someone that'll give him a satisfying fight, when he comes across this girl who is being pursued by what looks like a group of thugs. He ends up having a brawl with them and having kind of a satisfactory fight. So the girl asks him to basically join her organization that she's just started. Turns out that she is the daughter of a mafia boss, or part of the Yakuza. Except this is a Yakuza for Ayakashi. And basically she is trying to take back her father's chair and needs his strength to help her do that. So we follow the pair of them going to the spirit realm and trying to gain intel and do the things that they need to do in order to accomplish her goal. So this one I thought was interesting. I definitely like the supernatural aspect and kind of melding the Yakuza aspects with the supernatural underground type of story. However, there are a lot of things that happen in this story to the point where I am not too sure that I'm going to have a satisfying end once I get to the end of this series. So I believe this series is only 3 volumes long, and I believe it's only that long because it was canceled. And so I'm not even sure if we're going to get a full story out of what was released. There are quite a few things that are brought up during this volume, and something about the Ayakashi in particular that I didn't quite grasp until the very end of this volume. I guess it just didn't click for me in realizing it at the end of the volume. It just kind of added to the fact that there were just so many things that were introduced in this volume. And then even thinking on that, on top of the fact that I'm not sure if we're going to get a full story out of this or a satisfying ending or anything like that, I was a little less than satisfied at the end of this volume. I did enjoy what I read. It was very entertaining. Our character, the human character, there seems to be some kind of mystery around if he's actually human because of the amount of strength that he's amassed. I would love to know if we, get an answer to that. But with all the fighting that happened in this volume, I don't feel like there was enough story. So I'm a little bit concerned going into the last 2 volumes. Now, this is the only volume that I actually own. I do know that this is on the Shonen Jump app for me to read, and we do have a subscription. So I will be finishing the 2 volumes that are left on the app sometime. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I'll definitely be continuing, but this wasn't as satisfying a read as I thought it was going to be. So those are my thoughts on Ayashimon. And then we have Volume 1 of Heaven's Design Team. So you can kind of think of this as the kind of story of how animals that we know were created. Now, it does say created by God at the very beginning of this volume. The actual words are the Almighty God. But that is really the only kind of religious, I would say, wording that's there. Now, there are angels, but they don't appear as angels. They just look like regular humans. And then we have the kind of scientist-y characters who are coming up with the ideas to create the animals. And they're all named after planets. But basically, you follow them chapter by chapter. In each chapter, the group of scientists are like coming up with ideas on new and exciting animals that they are trying to create. And basically, each chapter is similar in the fact that that's what they're doing. Coming up with the ideas for the animals, doing test runs, to see if the idea is even feasible, and working through any like kinks that might cause the animal to not be sustainable, or maybe take out another animal and stuff like that. And basically they're working to get what's called divine approval to have the animal basically be in existence. And so that's pretty much how this story goes. I think if you like Dinosaur Sanctuary and how that story is laid out, not necessarily the story itself, but in between the chapters, there are little educational panels about the dinosaurs in Dinosaur Sanctuary. In this particular one, there are educational panels after every chapter about the animals that are created during the previous chapter. So this is a very text-heavy volume. There's lots of reading to be done. I was quite surprised at how long it took me to get through this volume. But it's because there's so much information to absorb. I will say there's definitely some comedic moments in how our team works with each other, and some of the character quirks that the scientists have. I didn't get a heavy religious overtone either. Like I said, there was the mention of God at the beginning. A couple of the characters are angels, and the divine approval process is basically one of the angels kind of having a expression on their face, and they're just telepathically getting that approval. And so I was definitely concerned that there was going to be a heavy religious overtone, because I don't enjoy reading things that have religious overtones. I was very happy that with the amount of mentions of religious things in here, it wasn't too ingrained in the story, which made it a lot nicer for me to be able to just enjoy the story without even thinking about the whole religious kind of take that this story kind of starts off with. And so yeah, I really enjoyed this volume. You can see some of the animals that we talk about in the volume on the cover here. I really enjoyed learning about the animals and the educational panels that were after the chapters. Like I said, there were several comedic moments, and some of the characters have some quirks. Some of the characters also really enjoy particular types of animals, so you see them constantly working on those types of animals and what types of creatures come from the base animal type idea. And just seeing the whole experimentation process was really interesting. to the point where, you're kind of like grasping the idea that they're trying to work out in their head of what animal they're actually trying to come up with. And you can like see like the thought process and how the experiment works and what happened and why it didn't work, or the tweaks that they had to make for the different types of animals. It was really, really interesting. I quite enjoyed this. I've had this volume on my shelf for a very long time. I think at least 5 years, maybe. I think I picked this one up when it was first released, and I just never reached for it. And part of the reason why was because I thought it was going to have too much of a religious overtone that I didn't quite grasp when I was reading like the summary. But I'm really, really enjoying the whole cast and learning about the animals, so I'll definitely be continuing. I do believe I have a few more volumes though, so I won't be buying any more yet, but I'm looking forward to learning about more animals, and I really, really enjoyed this volume. And so those are my thoughts on both of our first in a series selections. Like I said, if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on the series reads that we read for May, you can definitely check out my DCIS 19 diaries. But before I let you go, I do want to let you know what we will be reading for the month of June. So June is Pride Month, and typically I do choose a GL and a BL for us to read. But before I go into those volumes, of course, we will be continuing our series reads of Dr. Stone with volumes 14 and 15. And then we will be reading volume 5 of Land of the Lustrous. So as for our GL selection, we are going to read volume 1 of The Moon on a Rainy Night. This one is by Kazushiro, published by Kodansha, rated older teen. So this one says, hearing with the heart. One rainy night, Saki is rushing to a piano lesson when she crashes into a beautiful long-haired girl, dropping her sheet music in the process. Saki stutters an apology, but the girl simply hands back her sheet music and leaves without a word. Saki begins her first day of high school the following morning, only to find the stranger from the night before sitting at the desk next to hers. She learns that the girl's name is Kanon, and that she is not quite completely deaf, but very hard of hearing. Though Kanon needs to be close to people to read their lips, she tends to push people away with her icy demeanor. Through one kind gesture, Saki slowly begins breaking down the walls around Kanon, even as she feels something new blossoming within her. So I thought that sounded really interesting. This is another one of those volumes that I've kind of had hidden away on my shelves for a little bit. So I'm looking forward to checking this one out and speaking about it with my Manga Club members. And then for the BL selection, we're going to be reading volume 1 of My Summer with You. This is by Nagisa Furuya, published by Kodansha, rated older teen. So it says a wistful romance blossoms between two boys, finding themselves and each other through a shared love of films in this moving drama. Chiharu and Wataru are two high school students who share a common hobby. They love to watch movies. And after they meet, they become fast friends until one day Chiharu confesses his love for Wataru. Wataru says that Chiharu's confession doesn't bother him, and the boys continue through their summer, going on pilgrimage to locations from one of Chiharu's favorite movies. But the more time he spends with Chiharu, the more Wataru realizes he may not be as unaffected by Chiharu's confession as he claimed to be, and that those feelings may also be mutual. So this is quite a thick volume. I believe this is the first of a duology, and I believe there's a companion duology. So I'm really, really looking forward to this one. Again, this has been sitting on my shelf for a while, so I'm looking forward to reading it and discussing it with my members. And so that is all I have for you today. Let me know down in the comments below if you have read any of the selections that I talked about today and what your thoughts were on them, but please no spoilers. If you are interested in joining us in our selections, either next month's selections or any of our previous selections, you can do so by commenting in videos like these, or you can check out our Discord, which is linked in the description box below. If nothing else, and you'd just like to let me know that you were here, if you could leave me some kind of animal emoji down in the comments below for Heaven's Design team, that would be greatly appreciated and would really help me out, and that will do it for me today. So I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.